What does your nervous system have to do with manifestation and money? Honestly, pretty much everything. In this episode of the Manifestation and Money podcast, I'm joined by Angie Hawkins, the Inner Glow Coach. We're going to talk about the missing link in manifestation, and you've likely guessed it by now, nervous system regulation. Angie's going to share how she manifested $100,000 to move herself to Hawaii. And this episode will help you shift into a calmer, more magnetic state for attracting money, opportunities, and aligned experiences. Because manifestation works best when your nervous system feels safe. Welcome to the Manifestation and Money podcast, the show where we tackle the taboo topics of money and manifestation. I'm your host, Jenny Schultz, former 9-to-5 grinder who ditched the status quo and went all in on creating a life I love. Yes, I use manifestation. Yes, I took action. And yes, I created a 7-figure net worth before turning 40. Every week, I'll bring you inspiring stories with money mavens and manifestation masters. From learning how to make more, save more, and grow your wealth to unlocking the power of manifesting your dream life. I am so excited to play in this space with you. Let's jump into creating a life you love. Welcome to the Manifestation and Money podcast, Angie.
Hi, Jen. How are you? Thank you for having me.
I am pumped to chat with you. We're going to get into manifestation and money and how nervous systems play into all that. But first, I would love for you to share with the guests just who you are and what your story is.
Yes. Hi, everyone. I am Angie Hawkins, the Inner Glow Coach, and I help women stop chasing love and approval and start radiating it from within. And a lot of that we work on includes having an abundance mindset. And it's easy. I feel like it's easy in this society to not have an abundance mindset because, we all have different stories, but my story, there's an emotional side to it as well. I grew up with emotionally unavailable parents. And as an adult, I can understand what that means. But as a child, you just don't have the tools or knowledge to be able to interpret that. So I developed a belief that I didn't deserve to be loved. And, your beliefs dictate your behaviors, and then your behaviors dictate what you draw into your life. So with that belief, I struggled for a very long time because I just didn't feel worthy of not only love, but even material things or even having a happy and fulfilling life. And I spent a very long time, I was a people pleaser. I was always giving to things outside of myself. I was a perfectionist. I always felt like I had to earn things outside of myself for my worth. And that also carried into my money mindset because I followed society's arbitrary rules, and I, went to college, I got a corporate job, and I just thought okay, you have to work hard and hustle, and that is how you make money. And you can, and I did for a very long time, but my life kind of came to a point where it wasn't working, and I was miserable, and I was feeling stuck. And the first turning point for me came in 2017. My dad passed away, and he did not have money. So I did not inherit money from him. That wasn't a huge deal because, again, I had earned money through my corporate job, but I was just feeling really unfulfilled in life. And I was living in Chicago, and I decided, I was like, I want to be happy. I want to live a happier life. So I decided I wanted to move to Hawaii. And for me, living in Chicago, the cost of living was about the same except for real estate. And I knew to make that big of a move, I wanted to be all in. So I started researching real estate, and to maintain my same lifestyle, I needed about $100,000 more than I had to buy a condo. So in my mind, I was like, I just need $100,000 and then I can move. That's a lot of money though, right? So in my mind, I was like, this is going to take years. But I was just feeling so unhappy and unfulfilled in my life. I'm like, no, it's not going to take years. And I just made a decision. And this is so key because when your brain makes that decision, there's no alternative. Because a lot of people may have heard this term, like when you say try, you're not really committed to it because then there's a backup plan if whatever you're trying fails. But I just decided this is happening and there's no other backup plan. And there's also advice be delusional, and I highly recommend that. But I basically used and this was before I had read anything on like manifestation or anything. I had kind of heard of it. I really didn't know how to implement it in my life, but I had heard of the act as if approach. So I was like, that's what I'm going to do. This was early 2018. So it was probably like January or February. I called a realtor in Hawaii and I was like, I'm moving to Hawaii later this year. And I was like, this is my budget, which was the $100,000 more than I actually had. So it was not my actual budget. And I was like, this is what I'm looking for, blah, blah, blah. I started calling moving companies for quotes. I hired a realtor to sell my condo in Chicago. I just started pretending I was moving like it was actually happening. I think a lot of manifesting, it goes into the woo-woo realm and it's not very grounded. So what was really happening was like my energy was aligning to the thing, but on a more like grounded level, I like to talk about manifesting in terms of like nervous system regulation, because when you're in that energy of like fear and scarcity, you're feeling hypervigilant and anxious. And for me, because I was so certain that it was going to happen, even though it seemed so far-fetched, it was like I just had this calmness about me. Long story short, I ended up getting the money from various places because some of them were very unexpected. For example, I was not expecting any money from my dad because he did not have money, and he also did not have a will. And in his house, after I sold it, he had some credit card debt that I had to pay off. So I was doing all this work on his estate. But anyway, one of the credit cards, they relieved his debt. So I actually ended up with $40,000, which that was so unexpected and it took a year for it to happen. But my point is, I wasn't focused on where it was coming from because I knew it wasn't gonna just come from my job because I worked in corporate America. So I had to just be open to the possibilities, and it did come from different places. But that was like my first experience with manifesting money. So I kind of developed my own method from there. And it was based on regulating my nervous system, being focused on my mission, and not being concerned with the how. So, but that was my first breakthrough. And I've been using that ever since.
You are talking about, yes, there's the woo piece of this. This is like
Yeah.
manifestation, we're sold on the woo, and manifestation as an umbrella. I am the same as you. I was learning about the acting as if, and I was learning about vision boards and stuff that aren't necessarily, what would you call them? Like personal development tools. Like I think there was kind of
Yeah.
that category first, and now everything's lumped under this manifestation, which is kind of, I guess, the new age term for it.
Yeah. But I feel like that's just, and I understand it because it talks about energy and stuff, but I think for some people, it's just so out there that their brain is like, what does that even mean? And so
Mhm.
that's why I try to ground it, because even the acting as if, there is like the energetic stuff going on, but it's just such a practical way that you can implement it in your own life. And also for me, the acting as if, it's actually kind of fun because it is so delusional, especially with the whole Hawaii thing. I just started telling my neighbors, like, yeah, I'm moving to Hawaii. And in my mind, I'm like, am I really? But it's like you can have fun with it and being in that energy. Because again, the energy is the woo part, but it's like being in that energy is what brings it to you.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like that talking about the more grounded aspect of it. Or because anytime I'm like, anxious or whatever about money, it does not come. So I'm really big like on my client work and myself with the nervous system regulation aspect of it. Because that, I mean, that's good for all areas of your life, but especially when you're trying to attract things into your life, whether it's love or money or whatever,
Mhm.
when you're in that anxious and hypervigilant and protective state, you're not going to bring those things in. But when you're just basking in your own energy, it just kind of falls in your lap.
Yeah, that is so true. You can't manifest from that scared place. If you are so focused on, I can only pay my minimum on my credit card bill this month, and you're just panicking, that's the only thing you can see is how can I make the $20 or whatever it is, right? I'm sure it's a lot more
Yeah.
than $20 when you're in that state. But if that's all you're focused on, you're not aware of the money making ideas around you. You're not even in the headspace to be able to see the opportunities that
Yeah.
are around you because you're so in fight or flight, I guess, in a
Yeah,
sense.
because like what you're describing is basically survival mode. And I get that because I've been in places like that where it's like, okay, I can only afford to pay the minimum payment, but am aware that I'm in that mindset and I'm like, okay, I'm paying the minimum payment this month, but I'll get to the point where I'm just paying the whole card
Mhm.
off.
Exactly. Starting small. So yeah, let's talk about nervous system and what that shows up like. Let's start there. What does a nervous system unregulated show up like?
Oh, it shows up differently for other people, but I always like to explain it in terms of how it feels in your body. Because in terms of behaviors, it can show up in a lot of different ways, because I think anxiousness and things like that can show up in a lot of different ways. But I think intuition and stuff can be like, oh, you have to align, or like they use all these vague terms. But I do multiple check ins throughout the day. How does my body feel? Because sometimes things are going on and your body just knows this is not right, or I'm scared of something, which is your body or your nervous system. It's doing its job because it's trying to keep you safe. But sometimes we have these fears that aren't really realistic, and we need to, be an adult and think our way around it. So I always have like these check-ins. So if I'm feeling anxious, it's like, why am I feeling anxious? Am I really in danger, or is just this a temporary setback? What changed my life is questioning like everything we do and why we do it, because then when you start having these moments of where your body does feel tight or anxious or whatever, because sometimes we're not really sure why. There could be an inciting incident. You look at your credit card bill and you can't pay it, but sometimes there's just this low grade anxiety that you're feeling. But always try to identify why you're feeling that way and what the root cause issue is, and work from there. But then I always have regular practices of regulating my nervous system, because you can't even think straight when you're in that dysregulated state. You're not being creative, you're not thinking logically. So just for practical reasons, it's always good to be aware of what your nervous system is doing and regulating it. And like what I tell people, you don't have to meditate on a mountain for hours at a time. It doesn't have to be this time intensive thing. Like, I'm very lucky because I live in Hawaii. So I can just go out and ground in the grass almost every single day, and I do, or I try to get in the ocean almost every single day. But my point is, it doesn't have to be this grand thing. It's just checking in with your body and follow the feeling. How do you feel? If it feels good, then everything's probably fine. But if it's not, then that's where you need to identify, where is this coming from? Like, because if it's some kind of scarcity mindset that's just a belief that you can change, then that's something that you'll need to work on. But if it's, you know what I mean? It just depends on what it is. But my point is, you have more control than you think about how you are feeling in the moment.
Yeah, you have more control than you think. What are some other things that people could do just to bring themselves back?
Well, this is my number one thing, because I feel like usually if you are dysregulated, there usually is an inciting incident. So this is my hack for that. And this is a scientific fact. When you are emotionally triggered, the physical sensations in your body only last for 90 seconds. The reason that they last longer is because of the emotional stories that we tell ourselves in our head. So when you're in that triggered state, let's just use the example of looking at your credit card bill and you can only afford the minimum payment. So that triggers you. So in that moment, to calm your body down, just in the moment, just get rid of the story. You can deal with that later, but just to calm down your nervous system, all you need to do is focus on the sensations. So for example, I have anxiety in my chest. So what I would do, just for the moment, get rid of the story, and I would just focus on, okay, my chest feels tight. It feels like my heart's racing. It feels like I can't breathe, and just focus on the sensations. And they do go away in 90 seconds. And the reason why that's important is because then when you look at your credit card bill from that calm state, you can think more logically, like, yes, I can only pay the minimum payment this month, but now I can get a game plan together. And maybe you're thinking more creatively. So it's like, oh, this is a new way I can, find the money for next month's payment, or you know what I mean? You're just in that more creative and thinking state than you are when you're all dysregulated and can't even think straight. But that's my number one trick. But then there's also the daily habits like grounding, or even taking a walk. That is so underrated. I always tell people, even if it's just like a 5-minute walk around the block, that does wonders for your mental health.
Hmm. And I think nervous system regulation could be a missing link for a lot of people because they hear about
Yeah.
manifestation. You go out, you you do all the woo part of the manifestation. But a big piece then is the inspired action that goes along with that. So if
Mm.
you have an unregulated, that's a tongue twister, unregulated nervous
I,
system, you aren't able to see the action steps or even have the capacity to take the action steps, which
exactly.
is the co-creation of bringing your thing to life. So I think that it's easy to say go take the action required to get the thing you want, but we don't always have the capacity to be able to do that.
Exactly. Think in your own life, like when you're like, I don't know, taking a shower or something where you're just so relaxed or whatever, and you have this amazing idea or a thought pops into your head that never would have if you were grinding away working or something. So it's the same concept.
The shower is my favorite place. I have a grounding exercise I do in the shower, just
Oh,
thinking and washing all
perfect.
my negative energy
Oh,
down the
yeah.
drain. And so the shower, it's my
Yeah.
think tank. I get the most
Honestly,
inspired
even
thoughts.
taking a shower is great for regulating your nervous system. Like
Mhm.
the warm water is so soothing.
Yeah. So basically, find what works for you. Find what takes you from
Yeah.
that state of the icky feeling back into allowing yourself to process it instead of just shoving it to a box like I always used to do.
Oh, same. Yes. I know. And then I was like, why am I chronically anxious all the time?
Mhm. Yeah, exactly. And feel that urge to cry, but never actually let yourself cry. That's not a good thing. Just
Yeah.
let's just let it out. You work with people now on manifestation and money, right?
Yeah, because someone came to me and she was like, hey, like she had a question about money mindset. And I was like, I can actually help you with that because it's very similar to the other work I'm doing because it's belief reprogramming, calming your nervous system. And so I worked with her. And when she came to me, she was at a job, she was being paid well below market value. And so she would get all anxious and then go rage apply for jobs. And I was like, okay, we're not doing that anymore. And I was like, just take a step back. And I was like, simply just reach out to your network, just start having conversations and, ask people what's out there. And the whole point of this advice was because she was rage applying for jobs in a state of anxiousness and that dysregulated nervous system. So I wanted to encourage her to do something toward a new job that was more like in this curiosity. Again, in the woo woo talk, it's like a higher vibration of like she's not attached to any outcome. It's I'm just having conversations, I'm just networking. And she found a new job almost immediately from doing that paid 80,000 more dollars a year. And I was like, this is exactly what I'm talking about because with that regulated state, and because even she was telling me in the job interview, she disagreed with something he said, but it was because she was speaking from who she was, because she was in that regulated state. She was being authentic, and because when you're dysregulated, sometimes you're like, oh, I don't want to speak my truth because what will they think? But when you're in that higher vibration, you're not afraid to be authentic. And I remember when she told me, because this was before she got the job offer, she told me, and she's like, oh, I disagreed with him because it was like, this was my belief. And I knew she was going to get the job because I'm like, this is aligned with your authenticity. And that's like, that was the energy that you were presenting yourself with. So and I know that, again, that's kind of getting into the woo, but that's the work that I do with my clients because that's what's contributing to an abundance mindset versus the scarcity mindset, because the origin of the scarcity mindset is all that anxiousness around, will it come? Where's it coming from? I just need to get out of this job. And, just changing your nervous system to get into that different vibration to attract the things that are meant for you.
Yeah. And it's interesting because didn't start off specifically dealing with money,
Yeah.
but there are so many parallels. Like they're like, if you're having problems with money, go clean out your purse, go clean out your desk area wherever all your bills are sitting, go create the space and
Yeah.
things start showing up. Start saying thank you for things and being
Yeah. Like
grateful for
gratitude.
just
Yeah.
like even compliments, and you'll notice shifts. Yes, we always focus around here on money, but there are so
Yeah.
many other parallels that are all connecting that you don't really think about.
I know, and that's why I agreed to do it, because how you do one thing is how you do everything. So yeah, I actually it's a beta program, and it started with her, and I have someone else doing it now. But I'm trying to figure out a way to launch it because I don't want it just to be about money because it is about everything, if that makes sense. So I might kind of do like a hybrid program or something, or maybe I just will do like a money and abundance mindset, and then like undercover, they'll realize that it's affecting all areas of their life.
Sell them what they want and give them what they
Yeah.
need. I think that's what the
Because
saying is.
Yeah, because even if we just work on money, like it will improve everything because that abundance mindset applies to everything in your life. And how you do one thing is how you do everything.
Yeah, exactly. And what is a piece of advice you have for somebody to shift in an abundance mindset? Because it just sounds like you can just flip the switch.
Yeah, I know it is not that easy. One thing that has really helped me, and this is the advice I give over other people, and I feel like it's worked for them, so I'll say this, is you get what you focus on because right now in my life, if I want to focus on scarcity, I could absolutely find evidence of that. But if I want to focus on abundance, I can find evidence of that. So you just get more what you're focusing on. And again, I know that sounds kind of woo woo. And I did this at first, like actually had a journal, and I would journal all the evidence of things that prove that it's abundant or that I have money or I have the ability to attract money. I would recommend that, actually journaling it out, because even when you're thinking about it, you forget about all of the things. But when you see it written out on paper, like I had pages of stuff, and I'm like, I have evidence that my life is abundant and that money is coming to me. Because even you get like those $1 checks in the mail for those, maybe a class action settlement or something like that. Because even stuff like that adds up and you don't realize it. Or if you find a quarter in the street. I used to journal all of that stuff, and you kind of forget about it until you're visually looking at the evidence. And it's like, even if it's $10, there's still evidence that like money is everywhere, because it's like, yeah, it's $10, but I found it in 20 different places, or you know what I mean? So that is proof that the world is abundant with money.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, my joke these days is if you think there's a scarcity of money in the world, go look at how much the government is printing every day, and you'll realize that there's not a scarcity of money in the world.
I say that too. Or like, just you hear about these billionaires, like think of how much money that is. Like money is not scarce.
No, money is not scarce. We just have to find creative ways to attract it into our lives.
Yes.
I would love for you to share with the listeners what you think your biggest piece of advice would be for them to go out and create a life they love.
To create a life that you love, because that should be your focus. I know money is nice, but if you create a life that you love, I promise you, you will attract the money, you will attract the love, you will attract all the things. So my number one piece of advice for living the life that you love is do at least one thing a day that brings you joy, because I feel as adults, we get caught up in adulting and it's not always fun. But if you do one thing a day that brings you joy, and again, it doesn't have to be this whole 2-hour time block where it's like a whole ordeal. You could take 5 minutes to dance or 5 minutes to sing or whatever. Or even we were talking before, take a shower or like just do something relaxing for yourself. Because first of all, it feels good and you deserve to feel good, but also it conditions yourself that you want to feel that way, and it conditions yourself to actually keep doing that and keep feeling that feeling of joy. And that internal joy is what's attracting all the things around you.
That is the perfect note to end it on today. And I would love for you to share with the listeners where they can reach out and connect with you.
Yes, the best place is my website, which is runninginslippers.com, which is also the name of my book. So there's information about my book. There's also information on my coaching program. The current coaching program that I'm offering is called Shine from the Inside, and I advertise as, women who are chasing love and approval and money outside of themselves. And it's about instead radiating that inner joy from within you so that you're attracting it. I do have a beta program for money mindset and abundance. I'm not advertising it, but if you come to me, because I used to have a free 60-minute Find Your Glow session, but if you come to me and tell me that you heard me on this podcast, I will extend that 60-minute call to you, and we can uncover, because in my GLOW method, the G stands for go back to your childhood. So we can uncover what your limiting belief around money is. Because even my belief that I didn't deserve to be loved, that translated to money because I didn't feel inherently worthy of receiving money. So we can uncover what that limiting belief is in that call. And then And even if we don't work together, I think that's a good piece of information to have to continue with your manifesting money journey and abundance mindset.
Absolutely. Because if you can go back and change that story, you are
Yes,
changing your beliefs and you're changing how you're moving forward in your day to day.
because it is a story, because we all deserve money. It is abundant. Like, trust me, I used to tell myself all the things and none of it was true.
I agree. Well, thank you so much for joining me on the show today, Angie.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening. If today ignited a spark within you, come play with us inside Manifestation Playground on School. You can join for free and dive into the Manifestation Vault right away. Come say hi to me and the other amazing members in the welcome thread, or just lurk and soak it all in. Both are totally welcome. Grab your spot at manifestationplayground.ca. I'll see you inside. Cheers to creating a life you love.